Carl Brincat, CEO in MGA. It's almost 1 year or something more.
Almost.
Almost 1 year. And it's more than 1 year. The new law in the gaming field is enforced in Malta. What has changed with new law? And what are the features that you now understand you have to change in the new law in near future?
Well, the law has been in place now for a little over 3 years, the new legislation, and we have learned a lot since we've applied it. We used past experience, obviously, in the process of drafting that legislation, but we continue to improve, and it's essential that we continue to improve and we continue to adapt to the dynamic industry that we regulate on a day-to-day basis. We're regulating very much with an evidence-based approach, so we conduct research, we consult, and that is something that we do on a regular basis. And in fact, we are currently in the process we've set up a business transformation team within the MGA, and we are in the process now of looking into how we apply the law, our internal processes, and perfecting those.
Can you tell us an example or more examples about some companies or some fields that changed with the new law?
Well, in terms of the fields that changed, licensing is the principal one, obviously. The manner in which we license has changed, and in fact it's going to change even going forward with the refocusing on anti-money laundering compliance and on sports integrity for sportsbooks, for example. We'll see changes in the near future on that as well.
New law, of course, has been seen as a transparency. Majority of the Malta situation, but did it change the reputation out of Malta? And of course, I think to Italy, where public opinion is not very good with Malta.
Well, the law is only a part of it. You need to continuously work to address the perception of Malta and not just the reality, and that is where we focus a lot on outreach. We have good relationships with counterpart regulators in Italy and in other countries as well, and even with law enforcement in these countries. So that is where we work a lot to change the perception of the country as well.
Yesterday we made an interview to an Italian lawyer specializing in gambling, and he said that it's some years that Italian authority, all the authorities in the EU are not talking as once. Some years ago, the regulators had some tables, some channels to discuss, to exchange their experiences. What do you think could happen now?
Well, unfortunately, a few years ago, the European Commission deprioritized gambling as an industry, and that is where the expert group on gambling services was shut down as well within the Commission. And that is one of the fora in which we as regulators used to meet to discuss. However, there are other fora as well. There have been and will continue to be attempts to re-establish the expert group on gambling services. But there are other fora, like the Gambling Regulators European Forum, for example, as well as naturally bilateral relationships between the regulators. So there are still channels of communication.
And with Italy, you have a favorite channel of communication, because Italy, of course, is the main market for operators licensed in Malta.
Not so much anymore, to be honest. Most of our licensees are not Italian or in any way affiliated to Italy, but nevertheless, it is a priority country for us, even given the geographical proximity of the country. So we focus a lot on building relationships with Italy too.
What are your instruments? What are your features of your system that can control the danger of addiction for players? Because of course you are authority for the operators in protection of players, of course.
We focus a lot. Player protection is one of the pillars in terms of the MGA's objectives. And this is where we really focus on the evidence-based approach that I mentioned. So when we drafted the new legislation, a couple of years after, we commissioned an independent review on the effectiveness of the requirements that we have in place. And we've implemented this, and we continue to implement this on a regular basis. And for example, we require licensees to monitor their players on a regular basis to identify markers of harm and to intervene, hopefully before a gambling addiction arises in that player. And there are also limits that the players can set and that they are asked whether they want to set or not, like deposit limits and other such requirements.
Now that Malta, you are, of course, I suppose, in very easy relation with financial authorities, even because of AML. And now Malta is in grey list, and it's not a good news. But what changed in your job?
In terms of what we do.
Yeah.
In terms of what we do, so as one can tell from the FATF publication on the website, the two recommendations which are pending for Malta to address to get out of the grey list are unrelated to the gambling sector. So the MGA is focusing a lot on outreach and on transparency to explain what we do and how we do it. But we are also working with other institutions to address those two remaining recommendations to make sure that Malta gets off the grey list as soon as possible.
Okay. Just the last question. Now it's 2 years effective Brexit. We've been waiting for the effect of this separation. But what really happened? Did many companies from UK come to Malta, or are you expecting some will?
A lot of companies did come to Malta, and aside from that, we obviously work to continue strengthening the relationship nonetheless with the United Kingdom, despite Brexit, because it's still important. As fellow regulators, we still have the same objectives, so we still have a very good relationship.
Thank you.